All right. Well, it is 2 o'clock. We'll get started. As a Toastmaster, one of the things I believe in is starting on time. We will be recording it for people who cannot get here live and in person. Let's just start off. If people are willing, if you're not, just don't say anything. But I'd be interested. There's some of you who I know, some of you who I know well, and some of you who I don't know at all. And if people are willing to introduce themselves, just your name, I'd be interested in where you are located, how you heard about the Inner Peace Project, and what is your interest. And gosh, now people are really popping on. Okay. So I'm just going to go down my list I have. Christina, are you willing to introduce yourself? Hi.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Christina from Montreal. I am a life and love coach, and I just finished my second module with Julian on Peak States, actually on trauma therapy.
Uh-huh.
And I have been, from the beginning of the COVID crisis, I have been facilitating free coaching and support for the Latin American community in Montreal and elsewhere. And so when I saw your project, I thought it was a great idea, because at this time especially you couldn't have chosen a better time. I think it's much needed.
Well, we could have done it a year ago. That would have been better, and then everyone would be in inner peace.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Now that you say that, yes, of course.
Good. Okay, that's exciting. Lovely to meet you, Christina. I'm excited about you
Thank
joining
you.
the Institute family, and as the medical director of the Institute, hopefully we'll get to know each other better. Awesome.
Yes.
Next up is Bana. Am I saying your name correctly?
Yes. Hi.
Yes. Hi, Bana.
I'm Bana. I am from Austin, Texas. I have a wonderful cousin here, Sonia, who is in Sydney, Australia, who told me about your work, and I was really excited and interested. And so I joined your Facebook page, and here I am.
All right. Well, welcome, Sonia or Bana. Sonia told you about Inner Peace, or you're just, Sonia said it's cool, so I'm showing up?
Yes. I mean, apparently she has taken some courses, and she is now currently a therapist, and it was a new subject for me. And I thought, wow, what a great thing to learn about. And I was introduced to your page, and as soon as I heard about it, I jumped in. So
okay, great. Well, welcome, Bana. Nice to meet you. Athena, are you in a place where you can introduce yourself?
I am.
Okay.
And I'm right now trying to get one of my potential clients. Well, she's definitely going to be one of my practice clients. She's in Honduras, and she's trying to get onto the Zoom.
Oh, okay.
So I was talking with her in the background. We might need to she might need to just listen in. But she's pretty tech savvy. So I am living in Fresno, California right now. I am one of Mary's students with the IHSS trauma therapy beginning class. So I'm very excited to be going through second class and third class. I heard Mary speaking at the first Peak State Symposium, and knew right then that I needed to be a part of this. So here I am, and I'm telling everybody I know. So I think they're going to be a whole lot more than just 10 people for pilot program.
All right, great. Thank you, Athena.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next up on my list, going down. All right, I have Kevin's 108. There you are, I can see you. Can you come off of mute? maybe. Maybe not.
Maybe you
Okay.
don't, then it's okay.
All right. I'll come back to you. Lucy. Don't see your camera. There you are. Hi, Lucy. Can you come off of mute? Bottom, if you're on a computer, bottom.
Yes.
Yes,
Are
there
you
you are.
hearing me? Yeah,
Yes, I can hear you now. Hi, Lucy.
that's fine. Hi. I'm a student from Shane from the 2019.
Okay.
I've got the 2 first courses with him, and I'm already have the inner peace. And sorry, I got a call.
It's okay.
And I already had the inner peace service to treatment, and I feel so quiet and so peaceful inside me. So I'm very excited by your project, and I would like to hear more about that.
Okay, great. And
That's
a little bit later, if you want to share a little bit more of your experience with inner peace, people that
Would be nice,
perhaps
yeah.
don't have it, they would like to
Yeah.
hear that.
Fine.
All right. Vivian. Hi, Vivian.
Hi, so I am a friend of Athena's, and she's been working with me a little bit on the tapping. So she thought that this would be something I'd be interested in.
Okay. Where are you located, Vivian?
I'm in Fresno, California.
In Fresno. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. All right. Let's see. There's something that shows up on my list as the Matrix Wellness Center. Without video. Yep.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Thomas Jenkins. I'm with Matrix Wellness Center. I'm a friend of Athena's. Kate Williams is a good friend of mine, and she's a good friend of Athena's. I'm in the San Diego area, and it's nice to be here.
Great. Well, welcome, Thomas. Great. Thank you for hopping on and introducing yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And let me see, who else do I have? Andrea. I have Andrea's iPhone. So I don't know if there's an Andrea at the other end of that or.
Hey.
Oh, hi, Andrea. Is it Andrea?
Andrea, yes.
Andrea, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to connect, but I don't know. It's my first time using Zoom, so yeah, it was a hard time.
We can hear you. That's amazing. So great.
Yeah, so I'm Andrea, and I'm Tina's friend. I live in Honduras. Yes, and nice to meet you all.
All right, great. Well, Athena did a great job she said she was working in the background to get you hooked up, and so it looks like you guys got hooked up, so that's great. Thank you, Athena. And who have I missed? Someone, I can see you. It says Kevin's 108 on your picture. There you are. Hello. We cannot, you are unmuted, but I cannot hear you. Try again.
It's just beginning.
Say one more. Julian, do you have any idea of, she's unmuted, but we can't.
Who?
Well, her handle is Kevin's 108. I don't know what her name is. She has a lovely smile, though.
I don't see.
Her name is Kate, and
Kate. Kate Evans.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me help her. I'll get off, and I'll help her get
perfect.
her microphone working.
Perfect. Thank you. And while I believe that was Thomas who's going to help Kate, Cecile. Hi.
You're on mute.
Hi.
Hi, Cecile. We're just introducing ourselves.
I loved your video.
Oh, thank you. Cecile, you are in
Paris.
In Paris, of course. Paris, why not? And you are a student, correct? ISPS student?
Actually, yes. I prepared the certification with Shane, and I'm hypnotherapist, basically.
Great. All right. Okay. Well, let's see. Kate, just give me a wave when you're ready to introduce yourself. If you get that, are you ready? Okay. Let's give it a shot. No, you're not ready. Not ready. Okay. Well, if at some time you get it working, we'd love to hear from you. And if not, we can see your beautiful smile, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
can type in the comments if you want.
Okay.
Comment if you want.
Yeah. So Julian, in case there are Julian and well, I guess let's you guys should introduce yourself. So I'm Dr. Mary Pelletier. I am the medical director for the Institute of Peak States. My partners in this project are Rita. Rita, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so my name is Rita Ibn Brahim. I'm originally from Morocco, and I live in Montreal. So I'm a Peak State certified therapist, and I'm really passionate about the Inner Peace Project, and I'm happy to be here today.
Great, and you'll be hearing a little bit more from Rita later. And Julian?
Hi everyone, so my name is Julien, Julien Roux. I'm from France. I'm living in Montreal, Canada for 10 years now. And it's been like 2 years I'm a certified Peak State therapist. So I'm doing that full time. So that's my job, helping people to feel better in their life, also helping them to go into inner peace, because a lot of people don't know that we can feel good all the time. So that's also why I'm so passionate in Mary project, because the Inner Peace Project, because it's like our babies now, because we want people to know that it's possible to feel better all the time, and also to have the tools to feel better all the time. So we will talk more about that later.
Great.
So thank you everyone.
Thanks, Julian. And Kathy, I see you just popped on. Do you want to, we're just introducing ourselves before we dive in. Do you want to come off mute and introduce yourself?
Hello.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, I just came in. I went for my run, and then I thought, oh, I'm gonna go pick strawberries, and then I remembered it's after 2. So anyway, so my name is Kathy Kelly. I live in Sunnyside, Washington, about 45 minutes from where Mary lives. And I'm very interested in the project that the Inner Peace Project, and I did the Inner Peace, the workshop last fall. And yeah, it's been really life-changing. And we just went on vacation with my sons and my grandsons, and it went really, really well. Like, things just don't trigger me like they used to. I say grandsons, I mean grandkids, but they don't trigger me like they used to. And I thought, it'd be really interesting to have the whole family in that same frame, But I think just the fact that I don't respond the way I used to has really made a huge difference. So anyway, in a small community, to try it would be really awesome. And then to see it grow would be amazing.
Cool. So maybe a little bit later, we'll talk about if people that are in the States have anything else to share. So if you have anything else other than you shared there, that would be great, Kathy. All right. I think we've heard from everyone except Kate, but we know she's there and she has a beautiful smile. So I'm just gonna dive in. We have a little bit of just things that this isn't, as you can see, hopefully not hopefully, it's not formal at all, just kind of chitty-chatting and sharing about the project. And then if there's things that we don't tell you about that you're curious about, we're happy to entertain any questions. Maybe I will not assume that you have all seen the video that I did that's posted on the Facebook page. So I'll just tell a little bit of that story, kind of how the project started. For more details, you can watch the video. But basically my story, and I'm actually trained as a family physician. I did that for a number of years, many moons ago, and got I got really frustrated with conventional medicine because though it's absolutely brilliant for all kinds of things, if you get hit by a truck, for all kinds of acute illnesses, if you're suffering with COVID bad enough that you need to be in an ICU, you definitely want a conventionally trained doc. But for a lot of chronic illnesses, it's doesn't work as well. It's basically about treating symptoms with medications, which just suppresses things. That's another story. But in any event, so I had, after I became a physician, I worked for a while, got really frustrated and started to explore alternative health, alternative methods. And along the way, I learned the emotional freedom technique. Some of you may know that it's a tapping technique where you're tapping on the ends of the meridians. It's one of the first energy therapies. So this was, gosh, I don't know, probably 25 years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I was so enthralled with it. I did it all the time. Anything that came up that upset, that was an upset in my life, I tapped on it for 1 year. I tapped and tapped on, stuff that happened in medical school and residencies. And by that time I had 2 young boys, and my 2 sons were just very young toddlers at the time. So I was tapping on everything. And back in those days, in the old days of computers, there was something called listservs. So we didn't have the internet like we know it now, and there wasn't, Facebook didn't exist. But Gary Craig, who was the person who developed EFT, he had a listserv. And so we'd send emails back and forth. And there was this one crazy guy on there named Grant McFedridge, who was just really different than other people, but we struck up a friendship. And one day, about 22 years ago, I was working, my desk was always piled high with work, and I had 2 little kids, and I was trying to work, and stress and all of that was going on. But one day, after tapping for about a year, every day, multiple times a day, I woke up and I was just like, oh my gosh, something was really, really different. So my desk looked the same, and I realized that there had been this knot of tension in my gut that I didn't even know was there. It was just so much in the background. And it was like it was gone. And I also remember going outside and looking at the clouds and going, oh my God, they're so beautiful. And I literally, not figuratively, literally will pull my car off the road just to stare at the clouds. And so things just shifted. It was a huge shift for me. And I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know what was going on. I would ask my friends, and they're like, okay, maybe we should have her committed. I don't know, Mary, maybe you should see a psychiatrist. Get a little bit of, I don't know, you're talking really wacky. And I'm like, no, but I feel so amazing. The other thing I noticed, and I've had other people move into Inner Peace told me this, I became a much better parent. It was suddenly, and remember, my kids are small. They were going to Montessori school at the time. And my youngest one is my little drama queen there. And I don't want to go to school. And it was like, okay, I have to get to work. It was like this irritation and da-da-da. Well, after this happened, all of a sudden it was like, wow, I wonder what's wrong with Justin. That's interesting. Just total shift in how I approach the kids and their upsets. The irritation was gone, just gone. So trying to figure out what the heck had happened, I was talking to this crazy friend of mine from Gary Craig's email listserv. And he says, and this is how I know how long ago it was. And he said, just wait, Mary, in 2 weeks, I'm going to get up the website for the Institute for the Study of Peak States. So 2 weeks go by and he gets it up, and I remember going on there. So that's how long ago it was when the website was first up. And he had listed characteristics of various peak states of consciousness. And when I came to the peak state called Inner Peace, it was basically check all of those characteristics. That's what I was noticing. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm not insane. There's a name for what's happened with me. So that's how I got into the inner peace peak state of consciousness. So I basically, most of the time over the last 22 years, been in that state of consciousness. So it's way back a long time ago. So it's hard for me to remember what it was like before that. That's why I'm interested to hear from people who've had it more recently, and that shift for you is more dramatic. Because for me, it's pretty just status quo. That's the way things are. So that's how I was introduced to the inner peace peak state, and how I actually became involved with the Institute for the Study of Peak States way back at the beginning. What I want to explain just a little bit about peak states of consciousness to explain the Institute's framework on this. If you read about great states of consciousness from other philosophies, other traditions, sometimes they'll talk about you need to do meditation, meditate for so long, or you have to heal and heal and heal and heal, or there's things that you have to do to get into this great state. And that's kind of, if I thought at all about amazing states that are talked about in various perhaps spiritual or enlightenment literature, that's kind of how it's generally talked about. Our understanding in the Institute, and again, we're the Institute for the Study of Peak States, so our institute was founded by Grant to explore and do research on states of consciousness. And what we found, or what Grant found back at the beginning, is that first of all, there's more than one peak state of consciousness, so that's why we kind of have names for them. This one's called the inner peace peak state. And they are not something that you need to earn or basically do something enough to get to that place. We believe that peak states of consciousness are our birthright. In fact, all of us as babies inside of our mother's womb were in really great peak state of consciousness. And what happens is that from the trauma of birth, earlier trauma gets triggered and we lose those states of consciousness. So what Grant and his research team discovered was that in order to regain, not earn or get for the first time, but regain our peak state of consciousness, you basically only have to heal a very specific event in time, what we call a developmental event, something that's happened as you were developing as a human being. And that's basically how the inner peace process works, what we'll be doing in the project with people, and the people that you've heard of who've gotten the inner peace peak state. How they've gotten it is by healing that very specific trauma. Now, for me, I described how I got into it. It was just like an accident. I just probably didn't have a lot of trauma around that moment, and just all of the trauma that I was healing and healing and healing with EFT, I sort of accidentally stumbled upon it. But what the Inner Peace Project is about doing what I did and healing every trauma that comes up for you during your day, so you hopefully eventually maybe will land in inner peace peak state. So that's not what this is about. And for me, having done it that way, it is so exciting to say, no, number one, there is this inner peace peak state that we know exists. We know the very specific trauma to help you heal and assist you in healing to get you into that peak state of consciousness. Let me think about what else I want to talk about. So I talked about how I ended up there. I talked about what peak states are. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, let me talk about what is inner peace. That's the other big thing. Peace is a popular topic that's talked about all the time. People think, I need more peace in my life, or I want peace, or I'm meditating to be more peaceful, or doing all kinds of things to attain peace. And that's great. And a lot of those things work really well. It seems to me in general, there's just a lot more talking about wanting peace than actually experiencing peace. But I don't know, maybe that's my jaded self. However, and a lot of people it's something they yearn for, but they don't know how to get. So in the Institute, we want to be, and we are very specific about measuring things, because again, we're a research institute. So in order to research things, you have to have, how are you going to measure if someone has something or not? And in this case, the inner peace peak state. So for that, for the inner peace peak state, we don't just say, oh, do you feel more peaceful? We have a very, because that's going to mean different things for different people, but we have a very specific way of measuring that, and what I would say from an outcomes perspective of operationalizing it so that it's the same for everybody. And basically how we do that, and well, before I tell you how we do that, let me tell you what we mean by inner peace. When a person is in the inner peace, peak state of consciousness, you're actually in the present, living in the present moment. And in the present moment, and I can tell, well, for the people whose video is on, and for the people who are in the background who I can't see their videos, which is fine, but they're still hanging out, it doesn't look like anything really terrifying is happening. So I'm not seeing a tiger jumping out and attacking Christina, and I'm not seeing, craziness going on behind Vivian. And when each of you introduced yourself, it looked like you were kind of, like me. There's, my office is here, and yeah, my desk is a little bit of a mess. I have to then work on cleaning that up, but there's no craziness going on. So there's nothing in my present right now that's not, really peaceful, except maybe what's going on inside of me. And what happens with many people, probably even most people, much of the time, though they think they're in the present, their consciousness is being triggered by things that have happened in the past. There's always, to a greater or lesser extent, stuff that's happened in their past just sort of bubbling below the surface, kind of like static noise that you would have on an audio recording. So you have the regular audio recording, that's your life, but then there's all this static and noise. Now, for some people, the static is pretty low. For other people, it's just, you can barely, it's just crazy. All things are irritated. They're getting upset. It's like right now they're sitting someplace, but they're thinking about what happened yesterday. And, oh my God, my husband did this, and my kids, and I can't believe it. And, this is what's going on in politics, and all that's happening in the background. It's just all this emotional static. And that doesn't feel very peaceful. And it's because they're not actually in the present moment. They have this going on. So what the inner peace peak state is basically taking that background, I'll call it emotional static, and turning down the dials so that just goes down to zero. And there's none of that. That's just all that past stuff. It still happened. This does not heal that past trauma. And I want to be very clear about that. So it just dials down so you're not accessing it unless you're purposely trying to access it, or unless it accidentally gets triggered into your present, and then you can heal it. But it's not just this background emotional charge noise happening all the time. So that's what we mean by inner peace. And the way that we measure that is that when you start the process, and those of you who've already done it, we say, think of the 5 biggest upsets, the most traumatic things that have happened in your life. When this person died, or you got in an accident. The awful things that happened to you. And give them what we call a SUDS rating. SUDS stands for SUDS, Subjective Unit of Distress score. So you basically, I can't do this because I'm in inner peace, but let's pretend I'm not. And so I'm thinking of a man that I took through the process. So he said one of those upsets was when my parents died. And when I think about my parents dying, I feel sad. And that's at an 8. And then there was another, he had an accident where a car rolled over his shoulder. And that happened, I don't know, 10 years ago. And when he thinks about that, he's like, oh, that's this intense panic. It's like at a 9. So again, that rating from 0 to 10. So you have these 5 most traumatic things, and just as you're sitting there thinking about, yeah, that happened, you give them a rating. And after, when you're in inner peace, and this is what we measure as you're going along, those all go down to 0. So it's not that they haven't happened, it's just that they're not triggered in the background in your present. Rita and Julian, am I being clear in that?
It's okay. And it's also, it's not just the 5 most traumatic events that go to 0. It's like all your past events, when you think about it, there is nothing to feel about that. You are just neutral. So feeling neutral about that, and in the present, and being present, people will experience that as feeling calm or peaceful. It depends how people describe that.
Yes, thank you, Julian. That's a very good point. So Julian's absolutely right. So all of your past trauma events, if you got each one of them and got a SUDS rating, they're all going to 0. We just picked the worst 5 because that's giving you something to measure, and then you only have to have 5 as opposed to 200 or 500 or however many traumatic moments you have. Absolutely good point. And that's why it feels peaceful, because you're actually in the present moment, and those past traumas aren't being triggered in the background. And people tend to experience that as being peaceful and calm. We also, in the process, there are, I talked about the developmental moments. So we are basically, how we do the process is we regress you back to the developmental moment we have you heal. And then we use a very simple little emotional healing technique. You're basically tapping on one point on your hand as the emotional trauma gets triggered, and you're tapping it and clearing layer after layer. And that's what actually heals the past developmental events and moves you into the state. There are actually 3 developmental events that we use in this process. It's a very robust process. And we actually do a little bit beyond inner peace, and we clear around something that for many people gives them kind of a much deeper sense of peace as well. So we just kind of throw that in. So that's basically how we define inner peace. That's how we get you there. The last thing I want to talk about before turning it over to Rita is that why the project. So in the Institute, I'm the medical director for applied research. So our fundamental research team, who are doing absolutely cutting edge breakthrough research into consciousness and something called psychobiology, how our psychology affects our biology of our cells, and psychoimmunology, how our psychology can affect and impact our immune system, which has so we've been researching the COVID virus. Actually, that's what the research team has been doing recently. But in any event, so over the past 25 years, that the 25-year plus that the Institute has been in existence, they've come up with some really amazing processes. The inner peace process is one of them, but other things. And that's the people that you've heard here who are either therapists like Julian and Rita, or students of ours, are learning those techniques to help other people. And it's just amazing work. But we've been, the Institute has basically been focused on this fundamental research. And over the past several years, we went, okay, we've learned a whole heck of a lot. We got great, we have great techniques, but we've been probably kind of pretty much under the radar. It's a very small institute, though we're international. I believe there are therapists in 17 different countries around the world. Not so many here in the US, so I'm the only practicing. There's 2 certified therapists. I'm the only practicing one in the States, so we're trying to change that and have Athena and some other people becoming students. But my job as the medical director for applied research is how to start helping people who are suffering with our therapy techniques and things like the Inner Peace Project. So I was chatting with another member of the applied research team. She's our principal investigator, another doc that lives here with me in Yakima. And we were talking about the Inner Peace. She's also in Inner Peace. And we're talking about potentially doing a research study on it and how we might do that. And so we got to talking back and forth. And I can't tell you, we have about 70 therapists around the world, and most of our therapists are trained to bring people one by one, go through the process with them. So that's generally how the Inner Peace process that I described is done. It's done one-on-one with people. Occasionally we'll do it in small groups. So Kathy Kelly described, she was when Shane, our CEO, was here in Yakima last fall. We had a group of, I think there was about 6 to 8, I can't remember exactly how many people who went through it together as a group. So occasionally that happens, but basically it's one therapist doing it with one person. So as Joy, my doctor friend, and I were talking about the project and how we might research it and what use it would have, maybe in a medical capacity or such, we kind of just went a little crazy and started to dream. Now Joy's, she's actually a naturopathic doctor, but she's also trained as a Montessori teacher, and she's a midwife. And she said, I wonder what would happen if, all the kids in a classroom were in Inner Peace, or if all the teachers in a school were in Inner Peace. And so we started to, gosh, I wonder what would happen. And then I went, well, I've always wondered what would happen if you had some type of like a nonprofit organization or a business, and all of the employees or the professionals in that organization were in Inner Peace. What would that help with, their camaraderie, their teamwork in that business? Would it work better? What would it do for, the bottom line? What would it do in schools as far as learning? And so we just started to, throw this out, and it's like, oh my gosh, what about, doctors and nurses in the hospital? What if they were in Inner Peace? And, and then I'm like, what about politicians? Wouldn't that be cool? Like if, everyone in a political body, like here in Congress, was in Inner Peace, and that just about blew my mind. So that would be really cool. And so as we talked about that and I thought about it, I said, Joy, I said, we're researchers. Let's find out. And in order to find out, it was just like, okay, well, in order to find out what would happen in a small community, I mean, Kathy kind of talked about her family, her nuclear direct family. That's a small community. You can see a classroom is like a community, a business, an organization. They're all communities of people. I said, well, let's find out. So what I said, I said, well, here where I live in Washington State in the United States, and I live in a community named Yakima, which has about 100,000 people. So I got a little bit. I wasn't drinking anything or smoking anything. Really, I wasn't. But I said, well, what if we could get like half of the population of Yakima into Inner Peace? So I'm like dreaming big. I'm a little bit visionary, if you can't tell. So I'm dreaming big, and I said, okay, well, that's 50,000 people. Okay, let's say we can do that in 5 years. I wonder what would happen. So I like big, hairy, audacious goals. So I said, okay, that's my goal. Or, I'm going to see if I can do that. So as soon as I thought that, then I started to do the math. I'm pretty good at math. So if I'm thinking one therapist, one person, I don't have the math written in front of me, but if it was just me bringing people into Inner Peace in Yakima one by one, I mean, I don't think I could have finished that in my lifetime, right? It takes about, maybe 3 to 10 hours on average to bring of a person doing the process. And I thought, okay, that's not going to work. So then I thought, well, okay, if we're going to do this, I have to be able to do it in groups. And as I thought about the process and realized that it's what I would call scalable. So we already know we can do it in groups, but, and I'm not going to go into the details, but it doesn't matter. But I realized that there were things we could do to make it more efficient and effective, to be able to bring more people through the process more efficiently, and things that we didn't have to do one-on-one to make those basically on autopilot. So a person could do that on their own unless there was something specifically they need to do with a therapist. And that is basically what the Inner Peace Project is about, is testing my hypothesis that we can bring larger groups of people into inner peace more efficiently and effectively. Now, I can't tell you, I don't know how many people we can do in a group, how, you know, per therapist, what that means. That's basically what we're investigating in the project. And Julian and Rita, as my team members, we're setting up a platform where that's what we're going to be investigating in this. And I first introduced the project in I'm a Toastmaster in a Toastmasters club, and I had to give a speech on about a project, a visionary project I have, and so I picked that one, you know. And so that's when I first introduced it. That was back in February. And then the Institute had their first research symposium in April, and I expanded on that talk. And that's the talk that, for those of you who have seen the video, it's that talk that's out there, giving it at the symposium. And I'm still talking about Yakima in that, because that's how it started. But one of the things that happened at the symposium, and I think Kathy was there, and I know Sonia was there, and Athena was there. They talked to me, and I got a lot of feedback, and people got excited. And Kathy's not even in Yakima, she's in Sunnyside. But so none of the people that were excited about it and going, oh, I want to help, were in Yakima. And I'm thinking, oh, okay. Well, hey, you know, Yakima, the whole world, no big difference. So, so that's how the Inner Peace Project kind of blew up. And so what I realized is that there are some other people, maybe a lot of other people, who are interested in this crazy vision of mine. And that if we could create this platform to make it much more scalable as far as being able to efficiently and effectively bring people into inner peace, that perhaps there was someone that, like Kathy said, wow, I wonder what it would be like if, you know, my whole family could be in it. Or someone might say, oh, I work in a bank. What if all the employees in the bank? Or I work in this nonprofit organization, and what if all of the staff there? And that people might be able, in their little communities and microcosms of communities, be able to bring forth this idea and figure out how to bring it to more people. So that's kind of what we're doing. Julian and Rita, I've been doing a lot of talking, and everyone is mostly on mute, but have I covered all the main things that you thought I was covered or think that I should cover? Are we good?
I think so.
Okay.
And people, if they have questions, you could ask questions.
Well, I think let's have Rita and then you present, and then we'll do questions at the end. So we're here for as long as there's questions. So I think that'll be 5. So if you have questions, if you want to ask it out loud, great. If, for example, you're introverted and you can put it in the chat box, fine. Either way. So Rita, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And Rita's going to talk about why the heck should people want to be in inner peace, and what are some of the benefits? Okay, Rita, you are on.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, so first, as I told you earlier, I'm very passionate about this project. A few months ago, when Mary told me about the Inner Peace Project, I knew I had to be part of it. It's directly aligned with my life mission to help as many people as possible improve their quality of life. So, and it really improved mine, actually. to be in inner peace. I also wanted to share with you some stories of clients who did the inner peace process. So I had a client who was constantly arguing with her partner. She felt as if she was always carrying the past with her in any situation. Every time they were arguing, she would bring up arguments they had, even ones they had like 2-3 years ago. And so as at the start of the argument, she could feel frustration and thinking about all the past arguments. She ends up feeling a lot of anger and at an intensity that was disproportional with what was happening in the present, actually. And so after we finished the inner peace process, she felt a constant feeling of peace. When she was communicating with her partner, she felt calm, more present to what was happening. She noticed that she communicated in a more authentic way in the present. She felt as if she did not have to carry the past with her anymore. And so it had a great impact in her relationship with her partner. I had also a client who came to me because she was always triggered at work and she used to stay stuck with some negative emotion for hours and even days sometimes. So, and she was bringing that with her from work at home, and it affected her relationship with her son. And she felt a lot of guilt about that, not being able to be fully present with her son. And so after she did the inner peace process, she said that when something happened at work that made her feel sad or angry, she was experiencing it for 5 or 10 minutes. And then she could quickly go back to being peaceful again. She noticed that she had more energy when she was back home with her son. She was more present and joyful with him. And she noticed that also her son was different, that even at school he was more focused and more peaceful. And so it also improved her sleep, and so the inner peace state enhanced her quality of life a lot. So I think, yeah, Julien, do you have any stories that you want to share too?
But my personal one. So I did the inner peace process as part of my training as a therapist for the Institute of the Study of Peak State. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling peaceful. I'm calm. You know, I can be energized sometimes, but I feel calm and peaceful. So yeah, I did the process, and what a difference. So I was sure I was peaceful and a calm person when I was alone, or, you know, but that was a drastic change for me in a way that I never before experienced, feeling that nothing happened in my body. Like I'm here, but nothing happening. I was so used to have sensation in my body, stress there and there. It was so part of me that I never noticed it was not that being peaceful. Not having that is being peaceful, is being calm. So that was something very interesting. But what was really nice is I was working at the time in the store. So I was having a lot of conversation with clients, with my colleagues. So sometimes drama, you know, clients who are not as nice as it could be with me. And so I was triggered, you know, having emotion, reaction toward the client, toward my friend. And so I was going home and bringing that home, thinking about what happened earlier. And so I was not feeling calm. But for me, it was so usual and everyone was like that. So, but with the inner peace, something happened. 2 minutes after that, you don't think about it. You are in the present and you just feel calm and peaceful again. So it's kind of drastic change for me. It was because I was not thinking about the past. Even if the past was 5 minutes ago, it was like a dispute with someone, and no, I was in the present, feeling calm and peaceful. So yeah, that was really very nice for me.
The point I want to make that I'm thinking as you're sharing that, Julian, and that I didn't say earlier, is that our estimate in the Institute is that maybe 10% of the population are just naturally an inner peace, that they're born into it. They never lose the state at birth, and they're just in inner peace. Now, if you're in a fundamentally better than average state of consciousness, how most of society is, you generally don't notice because that's just your natural state of being. And Grant tells stories because he was basically from when he was a very young baby in a great state of consciousness. And in fact, that's why he founded the Institute for the Study of Peak States, because in the age of when he was in his 20s and going through a relationship breakout, he was in this great state. He just thought other people acted real weird. And basically most of his family was in a pretty good state of consciousness as well. And so he was just used to it. He didn't know why some people acted so strange until he lost it. And then it was like, oh my God, this is hell. And so he founded the Institute to figure out, well, first of all, how to get his peak state back. But he also had the realization that he just figured it was something kind of genetic, that he was born with it, and everyone else, once he figured out it was a special state. But when he lost it, what he realized is, oh, if I can lose it, number one, and he's an engineer, I figure I can help get it back. But if there's other people who don't have it from birth, maybe I can help them get them. So that's really what triggered the birth of the Institute for the Study of Peak States, that journey of Grant's and the people that have joined him going along of trying to figure that out and do that fundamental research. But going back to my point, there's a certain number of people in the population that just have it naturally. So if you're already in inner peace and have always been there, then it won't do anything for you. There's also people that tend to be a little bit closer to it, and so it's not as dramatic a change. So if you're a person that has, kind of static like this, going on, yeah, you're going to notice a difference. But if you're a person that has static like this going on, it's going to be a much more dramatic change. So there is that difference. And for some people, it's just this absolute, oh my gosh. And as Julian said, like that knot in my stomach I described, I didn't even notice it was there because it was so much in the background until it was gone. Okay. Anybody else? Bana, yes. Oh, you need to come off of mute.
You're on mute.
So we can hear you.
Hello.
Yep.
Sorry. Thank you very much, first of all, for all the information, everybody, and Mary for doing this. So my question is that, do you think people who already have this peak state when they're at a young age have it because they have not experienced trauma, or they have grown up in a relatively trauma-free family or environment where they have had less stressors, or parents that were equipped with better tools of how to deal with this? Or is this something, because you mentioned something about genetics, and I'm wondering, since you mentioned that person who at first he had this state and then in his 20s he suddenly didn't, and so I'm just wondering whether this is, how much of this is environmental in your opinion?
Yeah, it's great question, Bana. So the first thing is that, as I said, basically everyone before they're born is in a peak state of consciousness, is in a really great peak state of consciousness.
Peace and others.
Yeah, and we just don't know that because medicine doesn't know how to study consciousness in adults, much less in babies before they're born. But that's what we do in the Institute. So, but the developmental events that are critical for these peak states all are before birth. They're all before birth. So the trauma I'm talking about isn't about trauma after birth, and that's what you're referring to, Bana, is you know, more traumatic childhoods and such,
Right.
because it's all happened before. And what happens, but it doesn't really impact the baby, again, because they're in a peak state until they're born. And birth is the most traumatic thing that happens to any of us as humans. And more than if you were sexually abused or raped or any other trauma, birth is more traumatic than that. It's extraordinarily traumatic. And it basically triggers those earlier developmental traumas and pulls us out of the peak states. So there's, but getting back, so it's not related to later traumas in general. And in fact, are you familiar with the ACEs research, Adverse Childhood Event Survey? No? Okay, so there is, here in the States, they were actually looking at early childhood trauma, the types of things you're talking about. And they did an interesting study looking at people who they described 10 really bad things that can happen to kids. You know, they were sexually abused, they were physically abused, they were emotionally neglected, their parents, you know, were divorced, they had a parent in prison with mental illness. There was 10 really bad things that can happen with kids. And they studied I think there was probably 10,000 people they studied, and they looked at their health through history. And what they noticed is that kids with a higher ACEs score, like someone who all 10 of these really bad things happened to them, as opposed to people that none or maybe just a couple happened. The people that had more childhood trauma, like what you're talking about, Bana, their health was impacted. They got sicker sooner. They had an earlier death rate. They had more chronic illness. And that's due to the stress of those traumas. So that's what the ACEs study is. But early on in that research, what they found, or there's some research on what were called invulnerable children. So children that these really bad things had happened to, but it didn't seem to impact them the same as in adults. And if I remember right, and don't quote me on this, I have to go back and review the research, it was about 10%. And what I think is those, what were called invulnerable children, I think they were in good peak states of consciousness, inner peace or better. So that's how I think it's relevant, but it's not the early childhood trauma that kicks someone out of a state or keeps them in.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but it was a great question. Now the other interesting question that you didn't ask, and one of the things, so I'm hoping as we enroll more people and have people interested in the project, and that what we want to start doing is do some surveys, is how can we measure this? So I really love to get a journal article in a medical journal about the inner peace process and how that impacts, you know, does it impact stress levels, quality of life, ways that we can measure that. So that's one of my ulterior motives. I'll just let you in on that little thing, because we want, that's the way our society, certainly in medicine, won't pay attention to anything unless it's, right, you know, in the journals. So that's one of the things I want to do. But Joy, as I said, she's a midwife, and I have an interesting question. And what I don't know is if you have two parents that are in inner peace, if their child is more likely to be born in inner peace. I don't know.
Genetically, like the recessive or dominant gene, where you have two of.
Yeah, it doesn't work exactly like that, but it has more to do with most of the trauma that we're healing to get someone into the inner peace peak state is actually what we call generational trauma.
Right.
And so if both of the parents don't have that generational trauma, I would think the kids don't. Rita or Julian, do you have any sense of that?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know that we know that in the Institute. We haven't looked at it, but
we have example of parents did the inner peace. One of the parents did the inner peace process, and the child feel more at peace,
more safe. Yeah.
Well, so that makes sense. I know that when I was reading about, you know, abuse and trauma, that I think that some therapists or counselors that I was talking to a while back, they were telling me, those who are working with children, that if you have one parent, if the child is in a really bad marital, place where the parents are constantly fighting, and you have one parent that is more grounded, even if it's one parent, the child will still end up being in a better place mentally and emotionally than if both of them were, or even with that one really traumatized parent, or depressed, or whatever that mental,
so yes, probably
mental situation is. That it's like even one parent can make a big difference. So I'm wondering whether that is also the case.
Right, and I think that certainly the resiliency literature shows that that's a huge resiliency factor. If it's a parent, that's best, but having a stable adult in that child's life really helps them with their resiliency. And certainly, so these are some of the bigger questions that I'm really curious about. So if we're using, first of all, if you have a person who's a parent who, due to their own trauma, has a very dysfunctional life, and first of all, can we get them into inner peace? Will that work? Those aren't typically the kinds of people that we're working to that come to us, but and I haven't done a poll of all of our therapists to see what we study. But first of all, can we get them into inner peace? And if we do, is there a lot of that background trauma in someone with a high trauma childhood? We're talking about those ACEs, those adverse childhood events. Will that affect how the ACEs are impacting them? And as you said, is a lot of that trauma this background past trauma? And my sense is it probably is, but we haven't done that research. But that is one of the things I'm very interested in. And I mean, the other thing is if in the population that is struggling with mental health issues, can we get them into inner peace, and how does that impact it? So as a researcher, I have so many questions.
Right.
And so, you can't, you just can't understand how thrilled I am that, all these people are stepping up, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now I'm expanding my circle that I can go, well, who's, and I don't know what you do, Vana, but it's just like, you're obviously, interested in kids and different, I know what Kathy does. She's retired now, so she has all kinds of time to explore these things. But there's going to be people that have those questions. And now if we're all joining together as a community, and, again, the base project, staying right where we're at, is figuring out, can we scale this? Can we really get a very efficient way of doing this? And then we can start to, as we have people with access to different communities and have these questions, and then we basically are creating a platform for really researching peace, right? At a very fundamental way that I don't, there's other people that are working on that. If those of you who might know Lynn McTaggart, and who wrote The Field and the Intention Experiment, she's doing some research around peace, but in a very different way than we're talking about it. So it's very, very exciting for me. But great question. Thanks, Vana. I'm going to, Julian, do you want to?
Yeah. So
Julian's just going to talk a little bit about because we're at 3 o'clock, and then we'll take all the rest of your questions. So Julian, say your little piece.
Give me a 5-minute talk, and then after you can ask all the questions you have, if you have any question. So just talking about the Inner Peace Project. So Mary talked about the vision, what is inner peace state, and people that want to contribute to that in a way to extend the knowledge about peace and do research and all of this. So about the Inner Peace Project, our goal is to research peace, what's happening to people if there is more people in peace, and how we can get as many people in inner peace as possible, instead of doing one by one therapist, one client. So that's why we launched the Inner Peace Project. So we have created a platform. So people that will join the Inner Peace Project, we get access to Inner Peace Project platform. And then from there, they will have access to the inner peace process. So to get them into inner peace, because that's the main goal also for the people to experience to be in an inner peace state for forever. I mean, you get it permanently to be in a peace of state of peace. So what we do, it's like you have access to the platform with some explanation what to do, rate your markers. So okay, I take note of my 5 most traumatic events. I rate them 0 to 10, the most intense for each one when I think about them. So all of this pre stuff to do. And also we are opening 2 days in the week to do the process. So to do the active healing on a Zoom call to get into inner peace for you. So it will be the Monday and Saturday. So Monday afternoon and Saturday morning, there will be like a Zoom call for people to do the inner peace process. So people can, oh, this Monday I can come, no problem. They come the next Monday. You know, you go when you can and when you want to finish and get into your inner peace state. So that's the goal of the platform. Helps you to achieve that, have the support, because we will be there on the call, so we can assist you if you are stuck during the process. If you have questions, we can answer them in private, with all the group. So that's very useful for you and for us also to notice what can be improved and all of this. Also, we guarantee the process. So if in 6 months you don't get inner peace, of course, we refund you, because our goal is to get people in inner peace, but they pay us only if they got the state. That's normal and ethical. I mean, I will not pay for something I don't get. So that's the way we work. So that's why we offer a 6 months guarantee for you to be in inner peace state fully. What else about that? Yeah, like Mary said, usually it takes 3 to 10 hours for a person to get into inner peace state. So depend on the people, depend on the time you allow to that. Mary, you have something?
Well, I was just going to point out, so people who haven't gone through the process, yes. So Julian's saying we're doing it on a Zoom call, but this basically, it's an internal process. So we're going to bring you what we call do a regression, bring you back to this the developmental event where the trauma is. So you're just doing this on your own. You're actually going to be listening to some music that's proprietary music for the Institute. And there's also a phrase you're listening to, which is going to bring up the trauma. We teach you how to heal that, but it's basically you just spending some time inside with yourself. So it's not where we're talking about it. That's not the kind of process it is. Yeah. And what, as the therapist, as Julian said, we're just going to be here on the call as you're doing your, video off, audio off, you're listening, you're in your own little world, healing, but we're here if you get stuck. So it's basically that 3 to 10 hours, depending on how much trauma someone has, you're just doing your own thing. And that's why we think this is scalable, because it's not like group therapy at all. That's just not what this is. You're in your own little world doing your own healing, and we're just here for if you get stuck or if there's a problem. So so basically, at the beginning with the pilot, as Julian said, we're going to be open for basically 6 hours a week, 3 hours on Monday and on Saturday, to try to accommodate people's schedule when they can come and basically plug in and do their healing. As this grows, and we certainly think it will continue to expand that. And we certainly have, I know that if you notice Julian's wonderful Parisian accent speaks the French. So that's probably the second language. We'll bring it to French. And as we have certified therapists, all of the languages we have, and I think we have therapists in 10 languages. Yes. So we'll eventually, hopefully, spread it throughout the world. That is our eventual goal. But Mary. I tend to play out there. In Vision Land, it's like, no, Mary, stay with the pilot. We got to start here.
It's a team effort. It's, you know, it's awesome like that. So yeah, so to get back to the Inner Peace platform, so it's a website that you access. And then here we will teach you tools, and especially the one to do the healing, to be able to get into inner peace, like Mary said. So you go on the website, you will learn how to do the healing, what to expect during the inner peace process. And when you go on a Zoom call Monday or Saturday or both of those days, and you do the active healing on yourself on your own on the call, then you use those tools, and we are here to help you. Also, we will also give you a bonus stuff. It's like 5 techniques to improve your life. So it's 5 healing tools, really quick, easy, fast tools to heal any triggers you have, any emotion in your life that you can have sometimes, because the inner peace state makes you in peace and calm all the time, but you can still be triggered by event stuff. So we will give you access to those bonus that allows you to be able to heal those issues in your life, or, you know, little triggers to help you to live a great life, you know, in peace, and with tools to help you manage other stuff. And also about the cost of the investment in yourself. It's usually $1,000 for the inner peace state fully guarantee, but because we're starting the pilot, we want to adjust maybe things to see how it goes, we reduce that to half the price. So $500 US for the pilot to get inner peace, have access to the platform, access to the bonus tools and other stuff in the future. That's the offer. And what else to add to that? So we are looking for 10 people for the pilot. So we will start the pilot when we have at least 10 people. And if there is more people, then they will be added to another group. So they will benefit also from the discount, but we will launch 10 people first as a group to manage that, to see how it goes, what needs to be improved, what needs to be added. And then from there, we will see how it goes and what to do next with that. But that's pretty much it. What's thing to do? Yeah, platform, the inner peace process, live, and yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah. Okay.
About that.
Other questions? Thank you for that, Julian. Thank you. Yes, Christina.
So one question.
Oh, Athena. I'll get to you, Christina. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Athena. Mm-hmm.
So I know the answer to this, but the others may not. What happens if I have the inner peace state, and in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, something happens and I'm thrown back out of that state? Then what do I do?
So as Julian was just saying, and as I explained at the beginning, this process is not healing past trauma, it's just dialing it down. And so it is absolutely still possible to have trauma triggered. And sometimes it feels, especially if you're very used to being in inner peace and nothing's really, it can feel really jarring because it's pretty easy to get used to being calm and peaceful most of the time. In general, most people actually don't get thrown out of the state. It's actually there in the background. And even though this one event is very triggering for you, in the background, if you pay attention, underneath that, it's calm and peaceful. So that's usually what's happening. And that's why, again, we're teaching you tools to heal anything that does get triggered, and you'll have, access to therapists. But if in that 6-month time frame, just you come on back if you're stuck or having a problem, and we'll troubleshoot. And I mean, once in a great while, someone might get kicked out of it, but generally not a problem. But yes, that's what we're guaranteeing. Mhm.
And also, that's why we add the bonus after the pilot, because we want you to have techniques, tools, easy tools to help you to heal any triggers in your life that you can experience. Because
Yeah.
peace state is good, but sometimes kind of other little thing.
And I think that's one of the things as we go forward and we get more people involved that we'll be listening for. So as Rita said at the beginning, you didn't hear that from Julian, but I know he's here and as well as I mean, this is our purpose and our mission, is to help people live, their best selves, really explore and live out in the world, and all of the things that you are here to do. We want to make that as easy and as accessible as possible and decrease suffering. So if we start to hear from our community is, yeah, inner peace is great, but what we really need is X, Y, and Z, that's what we're listening for, and we'll seek to fill whatever gaps those are. What we have right now, for I don't know how many people have gotten into inner peace from working with the Institute. I mean, we've had this process from early on, and there's an earlier version actually, and we'll be promoting that. There's an earlier version of the process that you can access now on the web for free. The problem with it is it's not as robust, and we think it only works about 30% of the time. But but it's one of the reasons we know this is very, very safe. But we don't have large groups of people that are all communicating and saying, yeah, inner peace is great, but then there's this issue. I mean, it's just scattered data from all around the world. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to listen for and look at as an institute, how can we support people to just living, I don't know, Rita, how you said that, just amazing, joyful lives and living your best life ever.
You said living the best version of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Be
yes.
the best version of yourself.
Athena, did I answer your question?
You did, and I have a couple of others, but I will give the floor back.
Okay, so Bana, Christina had a question, and then I'll get to you, Bana. Yes, Christina.
Yes, do you, any of you, have any experience or with inner peace process on people who have addictions?
I don't.
I did. Yeah.
You said you did, Julian, or you don't?
Yes.
Oh, do you
want
to
like a
tell us?
Addiction with the client.
And what kind of an impact did you see?
I didn't, manage this aspect because that was not the reason to do the process in the first place.
Okay.
So I'm not sure it has that much impact. It reduced the use of the drugs, but I don't know if it was the inner peace state, because that was not the goal of the inner peace state in the first place.
But Christina, that again is, you guys keep saying these things, and it's like, we absolutely have to research that. Yeah, because I mean, we know as a physician, the addictions just in general are the person's response to inner turmoil. They're trying to find some peace and calm where there's just like crazy making inside of them, and whether it's due to ACEs or other things, right? People don't do addictions because they're calm and peaceful and feel amazing all the time. No. They just don't, right? But they're doing the best they can, and that's a readily available tool that society gives them. So I don't know the answer to that, but I would love to find out. Is that something you're interested in, Christina?
Well, I've been working with some young people with all kinds of addictions, mm-hmm. and as we are talking about this project, I keep having lots of people that come to mind, and that brings me to my next question. Do you have a specific demographic in mind, or can we invite just everybody.
Yeah, no, don't have a specific demographic in mind. And exactly what I was hoping to happen is happening. I guess there was a part of me that says, Mary, you're the only one who wonders things like that. But of course, you know, crazy me. I'm not, as all of you are teaching me. And that's exactly what the Inner Peace Project is about, is having people like you going, oh, what about people with addictions, you know, and oh, what about, you know, moms, and what about students? And there's all of these demographic groups. And the answer is we don't know, because we haven't studied groups. Now, are there probably, I'm sure there are people that one of our therapists have done inner peace with that have addiction, but we don't have the ability right now in the Institute, because all of our therapists, well, not all of them, but most of them are independent. They're just doing their own little practice. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's one of my jobs as medical director, to start to gather that data. But yes, there's no, it only can be this person or that person. The only stipulation we have right now is that the person needs to be able to do the process. So what the lower age is, I don't know. I do know that Joy, our principal investigator as a Montessori teacher and the mother of young kids, is very interested in children. And so at some point we may be investigating, okay, how, you know, and it won't be an exact age, it's more, can they follow directions? So we don't know, but certainly a 1-year-old cannot do this process on their own. No. And then at the other limit, anything that a person cannot follow directions, so someone with Alzheimer's, that wouldn't work so well, someone who has such a profound developmental disability that they can't follow directions would be a problem. Yeah, obviously people who don't want to do it, that won't work. It won't work for them. But if people can experience emotions coming up, they don't have to be able to name, but you need, so if people are, so for example, if someone is so, the psychological term would be dissociated, basically out of body, that they're not connected with their body, that's a big problem, but they have problems healing because they are dissociated. So that would be a problem. But if people can experience their emotions and either tap on their hand or have someone tap on them. So if you had someone, for example, who's a quadriplegic, right, who couldn't tap for themselves, but if they had their assistant who could tap for them, and as they could speak and follow directions, that wouldn't be an impediment. So those are really the only stipulations we have now of doing the process. And at this point, being able to access the internet, yeah, is the other. And then that's, and you know, that's another big one. But Zoom is accessible on phones, and I don't know what percentage of the population, but it just blows me away of people, all sorts of people have phones. So for the most part, it's a whole heck of a lot of people would be able to do it. So other than those things, we don't have any
I had a client with the issue, and then with the inner peace process that resolved her issue. But something that I wasn't really aware of is like she was having a lot of chronic pains, and almost all of her pain went away after inner peace process. The same for, she was having some insomnia too, that went away. So that was some side effects, surprise, that, like Mary said, that we can research. So same for addiction. So that makes sense. Yeah. But for now, yeah.
Yeah.
We can add some in the surveys maybe.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that's interesting. You know, you brought up chronic pain, Julian. I had, I can't remember if I talked about this person at the beginning or not, but someone that I brought into Inner Peace, and oh yeah, I told about his markers. He actually had a severe shoulder injury of an accident, and he had to have surgery. And he just had some, you know, lingering chronic pain there that couldn't really use that shoulder much. And the doctor said, well, your shoulder's actually, we can't find anything wrong with it. And what he found was that we didn't do any directed healing, trauma healing on his shoulder. I mean, we can do healing around that, but just put him into Inner Peace. And what he came back and he said, Mary, I slept on my left side. And I went, well, that's exciting. Why you seem excited about it. Why should I be excited about that? He goes, I never sleep on my left side because that's my bad shoulder. And he said, it doesn't hurt anymore. And he said, I've just started to use it. So again, as Julian said, kind of a side effect. Again, an interesting research question is how much of chronic pain, whether that's fibromyalgia or all kinds of the different chronic pain, and that's a huge problem out there from a medical perspective. How much of that is just due to past trauma constantly going on in the background? We don't know. And so that would be, in Julian's case and this case are interesting examples of that. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Christina. That was a great question. Bana, I think you had a question before.
Yeah, my question is kind of a little bit related, but kind of like the other side of it. Because I see your enthusiasm in trying to get this to as many people as possible. So it's like, my question is the marketing aspect of it. Do you have a radio? Do you have a podcast? Do you have any other advertising that you're doing?
So right now you're at the ground floor. This is ground zero. And okay. The very first thing we're doing is the pilot, because I have to, Julian and Rita and I have to basically, I dreamed this up and they said, yeah, Mary, we think that'll work. But we haven't actually proved what kind of numbers we can bring through.
Gotcha.
Right? And so that's what we want to prove, that this model works. And as Julian was explaining with the pilot, are there, we know there's going to be little bugs coming along the way. So as we start to prove the concept and figure out what kind of numbers we can handle, so what kind of, and there's other therapists around the world that we know that we can probably pull in to help. Right now it's just the three of us. Our plan is absolutely to grow, but I don't quite want to turn on the floodgates until I can figure it out. Yeah, and so those are, yes, absolutely, marketing, do that. As soon as I have, right now the pilot is going to be basically the minimum viable product and see how this works, see what happens, and then we'll start ramping it up as we have the capacity. But it sounds like you might have some enthusiasm for marketing. So so if you have, ability, interest as we go along, we're building the community as we're doing that. That's, how fast it's going to happen, I don't know, but yes, definitely I'm enthusiastic, and as fast as we can ramp it up, we will be doing that. So yeah, great question. Thanks, Bana.
Please stay around and in touch with us.
Yes, sure. Yes. I'm on your Facebook page. I'm hanging in there.
Yay, great. Athena, I think you had some more questions.
I did.
Okay.
So obviously this is a pilot, which means that if I am in the pilot, that means that this is really a community effort, you and I together and the other people. So that means that I have a part. And what is that part?
Yes. So basically, I think of a pilot for any type of program, and this in particular is we're co-creating this. So Rita and Julian and I mean, we know the process. We're licensed to give the process, and it is a license. This version is a licensed process. So we need to be there. And we have some ideas of what will work. But until we actually try those out with a group of people, we don't know that, and we don't know what potential bugs or problems might come up along the way. So if you decide to join the pilot and get that great 50% discount, what we're asking is that you're going to give us feedback and be, constructive feedback of, oh, this is a problem, and oh gosh, we never thought about that, or oh, this is really working great, or I wish this was here. Those sorts of things. We're also going to be starting to field test some of the surveys. So I believe, I have to confirm this with Joy, our principal investigator. We're not doing a study yet because we can't actually do a study until we get something called IRB approval, but we're testing some of the surveys. So the WHO actually has a quality of life survey that we might be asking people to take again before and then at intervals. So that will be something is if that we are wanting our pilot participants to partake in. But basically it's just testing it out. I mean, basically taking the new car for a trial run and saying, whoa, those brakes are kind of squeaky, got to do something about that. That sort of thing. Yeah. And it's definitely a partnership. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Julian.
and also your partnership is also because you will be in inner peace by the way you feel, the state you are in, you are impacting others around you because you are not reacting anymore like you used to be. You are more calm, more peaceful in your interpersonal interaction, in your work. So that impact others and maybe pick their interest to also be in inner peace. So that's, and
Right.
a big effect like that.
And the other thing that we're hoping, actually we can't require this because once you have inner peace, oops, well then you got it. But we're hoping that people in the pilot that make it into inner peace, and we're going for 100%. So we don't know if we'll make it, but that's certainly our commitment is and really looking at. I think our success rate now is, I would probably say, probably about 90%. So we know there are some people that there's problems that we can't figure out why they can't get into inner peace. But we don't know, is that actually 10%? Is it lower? Is it higher? But that's our commitment to do what all of the tricks that we know as therapists. And we obviously have access to our research team if we really get stuck with someone. But so if you don't get into inner peace, yeah, you get your money 100% refunded, no questions asked. That's not an issue. But I had another point here. Oh, yes, we're hoping that when you get into inner peace, you'd be willing to do a testimonial, a video testimonial, again, to spread the word and to, talk about how that, as Julian is saying, impacted you and your life and the people around you. And as we collect those stories and stories, and that's how we communicate as humans. And different people telling different stories are going to reach different people. So we're definitely wanting to collect those stories for sure. Athena, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And I had one thing to share.
Yes.
I have had some states that I would call inner peace, but it wasn't. Part of it was permanent, and the other part of it I came out of. But I found when I was really in that state, because there was not the background reactions to things, and there was just that peace, that I had so much more energy and so much more creativity. In the few weeks that I was in that state, I could have probably started 30 businesses. I had the most amazing ideas that just kept coming and coming and coming. So I did want to add that and share that. And that's one of the reasons that I really want to get back into it. It was an amazing, amazing state to be in every single day.
Yeah.
And to be happy, even though I was just so happy and joyous, even though everybody around me wasn't necessarily in that state, but it was okay for them to be in their state and for me to be in my state, and there was peace about it.
Yep. That is what people tend to notice, is that they're, and a lot of people don't realize how much they're being triggered by the people around them. Well, or they realize it, but they don't know that that's not inevitable is the thing. So
like there is chaos around you, but you feel peaceful about that.
Yeah, that word was chaos, he said. So he has a wonderful way of saying chaos. All right, these are all great questions. Is there anyone who's on Zoom Dark and is unmuted who has questions that we haven't answered? or anyone who's not on Video Dark that has questions. Kate, there
I
you
have
are.
questions.
Yay, and you have audio. Well, Kate, you have to start off because I promised everyone you would introduce yourself when you actually figured out your audio. So can you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're at and then ask away.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
So I'm in Nevada City / Grass Valley area, Northern California. I've been here about 10 years. I met Athena here when she lived here. So we've been friends for, I don't know, 6 years or something. And I follow what she's doing very closely. I'm very attentive. And so, and I have a background in psychology. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology and I always wanted to get a master's and just never did it. So this is totally up my alley. And I have a few questions.
Yeah.
I understood from Athena that, I'm going to just rattle off my questions first. I understood from Athena that the original trauma does get healed, and then I heard you say it doesn't heal the original trauma, it just dials it down.
Okay, so can I answer that question or?
Sure, go, yeah.
Because I'll forget if. Okay.
Okay.
So there are, okay, so there are actually two main developmental events that we're addressing. The second one is actually at conception. So when you are conceived, that actually is traumatic. Now, again, from a conventional medicine point, they don't get this at all. So hopefully if you're weirded out, that's just the way it is. So there is trauma at conception. And that is one of the traumas we're healing. So we are healing this actually two very specific trauma moments at conception. That gets healed. There's actually an earlier trauma moment that we heal on the sperm side and the egg side. So that's what we're healing. That trauma gets healed. But if, for example, Bana asked about past traumas, like when you were 3 years old and were physically abused by an uncle or something, okay? We're not healing any of that trauma, but that may be in the background, again, causing this background noise. I'm kind of talking about it. And so we're not healing any of that other trauma, but we're just dialing it down so that let's say that's one of your markers, this event when you're, every time you went over to your uncle's house, you got beaten for whatever. Okay, that's a huge trauma for a kid. And in the present, you think about this thing that happened to you and you think, okay, when I was 3 years old, this happened. And I think about that and it's just like, I feel terror at an 8. Okay, that's one of your markers. So we're not specifically healing that trauma, but at the end of the inner peace process, when you think about that specific traumatic moment, you won't feel anything from the present. Now, let me be more specific. If you then say, I actually want to heal that trauma moment when I was 3, you can then regress, go back in time, get in your body as that 3-year-old. Now you're going to feel that and go, oh yeah, the terror is still here. It's just that you're not accessing it from the present. It's not always present in your background. Is that clear, Kate? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's distinction. There is trauma that we're healing, but only at these 2 developmental events. One really early that we actually have to heal on the egg side and the sperm side, and then 2 trauma moments during conception.
And healing those because there is absence of trauma at those specific events that make you experience this as an inner peace.
And that's what pops you into the inner peace.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, great question, great distinction, love it. You have another one. What is it?
It's just about, you're talking about regression. So that made me think of hypnosis. So I guess once you have the person in regression, what you're doing then is different.
Yes, we are not, you're not going to be hypnotized. So we have a little trick that we use in the Institute to help people get back into an earlier moment. So if I just ask the people on this call, I was like, go back to when you were conceived. I want you to remember when you're that little sperm, you know, coming upon the egg. You're like going, girl, what have you been smoking? What, you can't do that, right? So yeah, anyone here who remembers their conception, Rita and Julian, you guys don't count. You know, raise your hand, right? No, we don't remember those. So we use a little trick in the Institute, and this is some of the brilliance of the research that's been done over the last, you know, more than 25 years, is we have a, part of the research team is a musician who actually, I guess the term would be, kind of gets a download or can hear, I'll say, hear the vibrational energy that's going on and translates that into music and composes a little music snippet that actually speaks directly to your unconscious and pulls you and anchors you in that past trauma, in that past moment. So at one of those is in conception. And we also have some words that our understanding that's a communication from Gaia, the planetary consciousness, that we are hearing at that developmental moment. So we use, and Gaia doesn't speak English actually, but that gets translated into in English and also in other languages if we did it in other languages. So we use that little trick of that very specific phrase in that music, and there's a visualization that we'll give you as well. And we've just learned that over time with using those three things, almost everyone gets back. They're in the present, they're not hypnotized, but they're basically paying attention inside, and they are at the right moment, at the right developmental moment in time, and they're just noticing what comes up. And then healing, again, using this very simple, just tapping on the 9 gamut point. We don't have to do, at the beginning, we did the whole EFT thing. We've learned, that's one of the things we researched, we don't need that anymore. And you can just, in each layer, there's a lot of different layers of emotional trauma that comes up. There's like, okay, that you're back in the moment. Ooh, I'm feeling angry. Tap, tap, tap. Generally takes about 60 to 90 seconds for each layer. That goes away. Ooh, now I'm feeling panic. Now I'm feeling sad. You're just going through layer after layer after layer until back in that developmental moment, you feel calm and peaceful and you think you've gotten all the trauma. So that was into much more depth than I was going to talk about what we actually do, but that's actually what we're doing. It's as being trained as a physician, and I have an undergraduate degree in sociology actually before that. And so, and then doing this work, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is just so bloody brilliant. Yeah, it's really amazing work that the Institute is doing. Okay, so Kate, hopefully, did that answer that question?
Yeah, and,
okay.
And my last thing is a suggestion. I don't know,
yeah.
You know.
Open to suggestions, yeah.
Instead of using Facebook, to use a different platform like MeWe.
You know, I love it that you said MeWe. I have, we're starting I have another project called Flourish Forward that is all about teaching and having access to information about that 12 elements of health and well-being. And as a company, we said, we are not going on Facebook. And we actually have our group on MeWe. Now, when Rita and I were just getting something up fast, because almost no one is on MeWe. So you're the first person I've ever met who's knows about it, which I'm really impressed about. We may not, and that's a good thing. Maybe Julian, let's put up a poll in the Facebook group and see. I am not a Facebook fan. It is just easy and we were trying to get it up quick before the project. That's the only reason. So I really appreciate that. Let's do a poll, and if we can move the group out of Facebook, I am absolutely 100% not opposed. Thank you, Kate.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all for me.
Okay, awesome questions, and thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Athena.
Oh, I just wanted to let you know that it was Kate that suggested the Q&A.
Hey, great. See, we take suggestions, Kate. This is great. Yes, so thank you, Kate, for suggesting this. And we thought, oh, Q&A, brilliant idea. Zoom. I bet people can access Zoom. We're doing that a lot these days.
And I'm glad you're recording it. That's even better.
Yeah. Yep. All recorded. Got that nice little red light going. So we'll get that all tucked away and put that in Facebook. And yeah, we will definitely start to research other options. It was just quick and dirty, and yeah, kind of more dirty than we want, probably. Yes, Athena. I don't know if that's a stop or I have a question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a question. What is your target for starting this pilot? What day?
Oh, well, we are very hopeful that we will have at least 10 people. So, and we can take, at that pilot price, we can go up to 25. If we get more, what we want to do is start with 10 people. If we have more that are interested with the pilot, as I said, up to 25 people, we'll honor that, the 50% off price. But what we will do is after the first 10 start to go through and we make any little tweaks, then we'll take another group through. So we're kind of learning and iterating anything happening. Our target, Rita, you have that date in your head. I'm looking at my calendar.
It's the week of the 20th.
Yes. So yes. So either the 20th or the Saturday the 25th, depending on just technology things and how we get up. That's our target start date for the first 10. And what this week I'm committed to getting the sales page up. What I will say is if you already know or have someone that you've recruited that you know that wants into the pilot, and I don't know how much, you know, if there's going to be a ton of people that are interested, but if you already know that you want that, if you send me or Rita or Julian a private message and say, yes, I want in, or I know so-and-so, they're absolutely yes, we'll put you on that list even before the sales page is up. So
you can send a private message on Facebook or by email. You can add our email on the main Facebook group and on the video.
Did that answer that question, Athena? Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Sorry, everybody, yes. I have to go.
Oh no, oh my goodness, we've almost been going 2 hours. Holy cow.
Yeah.
You guys are great for hanging on so long. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you.
I'm excited that you are here.
Yes, I'll follow up on the Facebook page.
Sounds great. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Any other questions? Bana, are you leaving? Nope. Good. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We are in the Facebook group. I just noticed we bumped up to 75 people now. I have more people to welcome when I get off this call. We are, again, we're very committed to getting the pilot up and running. Excited that there's so many people excited about it. So lovely to meet some of you in person.
Thank you.
Yep, as we go forward, we'll have more of these if there's a need, and always anxious to listen to all your suggestions or comments. Yep, absolutely.
So thank you.
Okay, I think we will sign off then. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.